If you are about to start chemo, then watch this video. Hi, my name is Amanda. I am 34 years old and I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer about a year and a half ago. I am a personal trainer. I am so healthy. I was literally the healthiest person I knew. Breast cancer did not run in my family at all. And so when I was diagnosed after finding a small lump on my right breast, it came as a complete shock. At the beginning, I was not told I had to do chemotherapy. It was after that we had found that it had spread to my lymph nodes that they were like, okay, you need to move into chemotherapy. All I knew about chemotherapy was just how toxic it was for your body, how sick you were, and basically what I had seen from the movies. Yes, I had friends and family who have battled cancer and I've seen the effects of chemo firsthand on them, but me imagining myself going through it, I just couldn't even imagine like what that was going to be like, and it was so scary. Ultimately, I ended up going through 6 rounds of TCHP chemo and I made it through successfully, and the entire time I was writing everything down, all of the things that helped me, all of the things that did not help me. And when I was done with chemo and when I was recovering from my double mastectomy, I ended up writing an ebook called Remember When I Had Cancer, Your Complete Guidebook to Chemotherapy. So I wanted to basically take my pain and my struggles, because yes, the doctors give you as much information as they can, but it's very overwhelming at the beginning for them to give you a complete lay of the land of what chemo and what treatment's gonna look like. And so I wanted to find a way to relay this information to cancer patients who are about to embark on their chemo journey. I found that the most helpful and beneficial information that I've learned was from other patients, and so I wanted to ultimately give back and provide that to other people. I've since shared all of my journey and all of the treatments and all of the do's and don'ts on TikTok. So subscribe to me there at Hi Amanda Butler and join the family. So in this video today, I am going to break down one section of my ebook, and it is basically the physical and mental side of what chemotherapy does to you and how to set yourself up for success as you're going into chemo. So I want to start with the physical health and the physical side effects that chemo has on your body and what you can do to combat these side effects. Now, going into chemo, you want to start from the highest set point as possible. You want to try to be as healthy as possible. Now, you're only given as much time as you can to prepare for chemo, and usually it's not a lot of time. And so kind of where your health is at is kind of where you're gonna be. I fortunately started from a very high set point because I was a personal trainer, because I ate very clean. So if you want to compare it to like a glass of water, I had a full cup of water, whereas some people might not be as healthy, might not be in shape, might not eat the healthiest of foods, and so they're already starting with half a glass of water or half of their ultimate health. But just because you start from a lower set point, and you might not start from the healthiest set point, or you might not be the youngest age, or might not be as resilient, doesn't mean that you can't have a successful chemo treatment. Now, I'm not a doctor, so of course, speak to your doctor about all of these things. This is just my experience and recommendations based off of what worked for me and what worked for a ton of other cancer patients in my Cancer Baddies support group. So one thing about chemo is it accumulates in your body. So I had 6 rounds of TCHP, so every round started to get a little bit harder and harder because the chemo was building in my system. As you get towards the end of your treatment, it's going to be harder to kind of maintain the same amount of energy and the things that you were doing at the beginning of treatment. And I went into treatment, I was working out the same amount that I was working out prior to starting chemo. I really wanted to maintain as much muscle mass and strength as possible, because chemo eats away at your muscle mass and also affects your bone density, your mobility, all of those things. And I really wanted to make sure that my joints were lubricated, that my muscles were being worked out, and that I was just mentally and physically trying to be as strong as possible. I took away the aesthetics of everything and I really just focused on feeling strong. So as you go into chemo, before you start treatment, I want you to sit down and create a list of realistic goals for yourself. Physical goals. This could be going on daily walks. This could be lifting light weights 2 to 3 times a week. This could be maintaining your current workout routine. This could be swimming or doing your Pilates classes or these low impact classes. Something that's going to keep you accountable and keep you in a routine, a healthy routine for as long as possible. Now, if you don't have a current routine, a workout routine, that doesn't mean to not create one at all. This means to just start slow and be gentle on yourself and go as light as possible. So again, this could be focusing on walking. This could be 20 to 30 minutes of just light weights and working your different muscle groups and making it full body workout so that you're making sure your entire body is being worked for those 20 to 30 minutes. So fatigue is going to be one of the hardest things that you're going to combat when you are going through chemo. You're going to feel very tired. It is one of the strongest side effects of chemo aside from the nausea and vomiting. And so you want to try to combat the fatigue, but also work with your body as much as possible. I don't want you to push yourself. I don't want you to push yourself so hard so that you're adding on to the fatigue, right? You're trying to work with the fatigue in a sense, in a way that helps eliminate and alleviate that fatigue a bit. The one thing about fatigue is the more that you give into it, the more that you lay around, the more that you're like, I don't want to get up and I don't want to do all of these things, the more tired you're going to feel. And I know that sounds crazy, and I know that feels like, well, how is it if you rest, you're going to feel more fatigued? It's just how fatigue works, right? So if you get up and you do an energizing workout or you do some energizing movement, it's going to bring energy to your body physically and mentally. Your ultimate goal during this time is to feel good. So you want to do things that feel good to you mentally and physically. If these are things that you don't enjoy, or these are things that, don't feel good on your body, certain workouts or, certain movements, don't do them, okay? You want to stretch as much as possible. You want to drink as much water as possible. You're trying to treat your body basically like a temple and nurture your body at its most fragile state. I want you to think of movement as medicine. So this is another thing that the doctor is prescribing to you. And a lot of times doctors aren't going to tell you to exercise and they aren't going to tell you to eat healthy. They're kind of just setting you out there, and it feels a little bit rogue and it feels a little bit like you don't have as much assistance that you need. So think of movement as another prescription that your doctor is writing you, and use it as a way to mentally and physically feel better and feel your ultimate best. So when you start your chemo, you're going to start with this plan that you've created prior to starting chemo, right? Whether that's, taking daily walks for at least 10 to 15 minutes, whether that's strength training 2 to 3 times a week. I want you to maintain this routine for as long as you can. So for myself, I was in the gym 3 to 4 times a week, incorporating cardio and strength and really focusing on full body. I wasn't really doing a lower body workouts and upper body splits. Like, I wasn't trying to separate that. I was really focusing on just movement as a whole. I went through these workouts and I was actually doing a lot of HIIT workouts, going to my Barry's studios, doing Pilates, those kind of things, up until about my 5th round. So I had 6 rounds, and then when I got to about my 5th round, the fatigue was really setting in and I really had to scale back those workouts just to listen to my body. It is so important that you listen to your body and you don't push yourself when it doesn't feel good. Okay? There's a fine line between pushing yourself because you're lazy and pushing yourself when you physically don't feel good. So when you get to the point when you feel like you have to scale back your workouts, scale it back like in half, by 50%. So maybe those walks might be to a walk around your block when you're not feeling good, or maybe that is just getting outside at least once per day on that recovery week from chemo, and maybe that strength training workout goes to 1 time a week, or you take a week off during chemo recovery week, and then when you come back you take those workouts to maybe once or twice a week. Okay, just adjust, listen to your body, and again, do what feels good to you. Now let's move on to the mental health side of everything. I believe that this is probably one of the most important pieces to preparing for chemotherapy and going through chemotherapy, because the mental, emotional toll that cancer and chemo plays on you is really, really tough, and it affects everyone differently, but ultimately a lot of cancer patients have a very similar experience. Okay, the first thing I'm going to set you up with is the beliefs and how you speak about cancer. This is very, very important, because a lot of people, when they go through cancer, they start to own that cancer as theirs. They're like, my cancer, this is my cancer. Or, you know, in social media, they might put breast cancer in their bio and they claim it as theirs. And I don't want you to do this. Cancer, when we go through cancer, this is something that you are experiencing. This is something that has happened to you and that you are learning the lessons from and that you are going to beat, okay? Your beliefs and the things that you believe in your mind and in your body control so much more than you know. If you start to claim cancer as your own and start to believe that this is yours and that cancer is basically your entire personality or who you are or what you are, then the likelihood of you beating cancer is going to be very slim. And I say that with all seriousness because I truly believe your beliefs control your reality. So instead of owning cancer, I want you to start to speak as cancer as something you're experiencing. I'm experiencing cancer. This is, you know, I'm going on a cancer journey, but I'm not going to be here long. This is something that is temporary. And even if your doctor has just diagnosed you with stage 4 cancer or terminal cancer, I still want you to speak about your cancer as temporary, because miracles happen every single day. And if you don't believe that you're going to beat this cancer, you are not going to beat this cancer. Honestly, I would say be a little delulu, aka delusional, about cancer even being in your body. One of my closest girlfriends who I've met since being on this cancer journey, she is stage 4, and her and I are the most delusional people ever. And we have completely just not even believed that we've had cancer. She's not believing that she's going to have to fight cancer for the rest of her life. She doesn't believe that she's going to be in treatment for the rest of her life. And guess what? A few weeks ago, she had completely clear scans. There was no cancer in her body. When before she had it in her breast, she had it in her lungs, she had it in her bones, and now there is clear margins and absolutely no cancer in her body. It's amazing. Same thing happened with my grandma. She was stage 4 ovarian cancer. We also, you know, we were praying and we were believing that she wasn't going to die from this cancer, and the doctors were telling us to say goodbye to her, say our goodbyes. She had gotten down to about 50 pounds and they were keeping her asleep. She wasn't even awake. And for most people, they would view that as an end of life, a person at their end of their life. And we just kept believing and praying that she did not have cancer. And 2 weeks later, the doctor said she's completely cancer free. We don't know what happened. And we brought her home. So, and then she lived until she was about 83 years old, and she was my best friend my entire life, which is crazy. Going through chemotherapy and going through cancer has a huge toll on you mentally and emotionally. People are going to have their opinions on how you should feel and what you should do, but ultimately this journey is yours to experience, and you are going to be the person experiencing it on your own. It can feel very lonely sometimes, and it can feel like you are the only person going through this journey, but I promise you there are so many people going through this journey who feel the exact same way as you, because I felt the exact same way as you. I want you to feel all of the feels. I want you to have the good days, but I also want you to have the bad days. I have been in this journey for almost a year and a half, and I still break down every few weeks, and I allow myself to just feel these feels. If you've seen my videos of me breaking down, I allow myself to have those days because I know that the days following that, I'm going to come back so much stronger. Cancer is such a roller coaster. It's such an emotional roller coaster. You have highs of like wins and successful wins, and then you have ultimate lows of like bad news and feeling like you're taking 10 steps back after you took 2 steps forward. And it's grief. We're grieving a life that was taken from us without our say. And so I really want you to feel all of these emotions because you are grieving. And the more you stifle these emotions, the more you push them to the back burner or push them out of your mind, you know, they're going to come up in other ways. So I really, really want you to go through every single emotion that you're feeling on this journey. You know, cancer is really, really hard, and you really think that when you are diagnosed, a lot of people are going to come to your aid, that people are going to come running and they're going to be so supportive of you. And what no one tells you is how many relationships you lose with cancer. I've lost some of my closest friends. I've lost some family members. I've lost jobs with employers who, you know, I thought were going to be by my side, and unfortunately it weren't. And it was really hard for me to process those things when I was at my most vulnerable, lowest state I had ever been in my entire life, and when I really needed the people that were closest to me, and I felt abandoned, to be honest with you. And it's really hard. But when you are in this state and you are in this situation, the number one thing is that you need to tend to yourself and care to yourself. Just like I said in the physical, do the things that feel good to you. I also want you to just focus on you mentally, emotionally, all of those things. And if that means cutting relationships out that don't serve you, then baby, cut them out because they need to go. It's going to be crazy that the amount of people that are going to come out of the woodworks who are going to be there to support you. Some of my closest friends are people that were acquaintances before I was diagnosed, and they really, really became such a strong support system for me. And if I had not leaned into them and I had not used them as, you know, some of my closest allies, I wouldn't have the relationship with them that I had today. So be okay cutting the cords on these relationships, no matter how long, you know, you've been friends or how good of friends you've been. If they can't support you during this time, then ultimately you don't want that person in your life. Send these people loving grace. Try not to have any will towards them, because at the end of the day, so many people can barely handle their own emotions, let alone the difficult emotions and heaviness that cancer brings. A lot of times people don't know how to react, and they don't know how to support you, so they just don't. And unfortunately, that's not the type of people that you need when you are experiencing cancer. The one thing that was helpful but also drove me insane was the amount of comments and opinions people had about cancer and my journey and the decisions I was making. Granted, I shared all of this online, so that leaves room for a lot of people's opinions. One thing that was really hard for me was losing my hair, and I decided to cold cap, and I really struggled when I was losing my hair, and a lot of people had opinions about that. They were like, just cut off your hair. Why are you crying about your hair? Like, just let it go. It's so temporary. And hair, which is a whole other story, there's so much more meaning to hair than just the hair itself. You know, you're losing your identity. For me, I was losing my identity. I was losing my career. I was losing my health. I was losing my my hair's been my identity for so long. I've always had this big curly hair, and to like lose that, I felt like I was ultimately losing so much control in who I was at the end of the day, which I struggled with. And people had things to say about that, and I got the nastiest comments about that. But I had to realize that this was my journey and my decision to make. this was no one else's journey to make. And a lot of times, because people are all impacted by cancer, they will dump the things that they've been through on you. So many times people were like, oh my gosh, my aunt had cancer and she did this and she went here, and my mom had cancer, and you know, my uncle had cancer and my uncle died of cancer. And you're gonna get a lot of that, and it's very taxing. But for me, I had to create an emotional barrier between me and that person, and I had to provide the love and space for them. But I also knew that I couldn't take on their burdens and their trauma and the things that they had experienced, because that wasn't my own. During this time, you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in your next step, and how you're going to feel, and who you are, and how you're going to beat this cancer, to take on other people's emotions and opinions and doubts and beliefs and experiences. That is way too much for one person to handle. So really protect your peace and make yourself and your emotions the top priority. The last thing I'm going to say is I want you to celebrate every single win that you experience, big or small. I always had something to look forward to, okay? So after my first chemo, I knew that when I recovered, I was going to have a dinner date with this friend, or I was going to go shopping and get this. At the end of chemo, I took a huge 10-day trip to Japan to celebrate end of chemo. When I found out that I could save my hair because I wasn't going to have to do Red Devil chemo, I celebrated that, and I went out to dinner with friends. When I had my 1-year cancerversary, I celebrated that with friends. I'm always celebrating something because I deserve it. And you deserve it as well too. When we're going through cancer, this is the hardest thing you will probably experience in your entire life. And so you have to celebrate when you can. And that's exactly what I've been doing, so that I always have something to look forward to, and that every little win is a big win. I hope you enjoyed this little snippet of what I've included in my chemo guidebook. If you are interested in purchasing this guidebook, it is available in 2 versions. One is an interactive PDF, which is available in the link in my bio and below, or Amazon Kindle has a black and white version, non-interactive version, also available in the link in my bio, and I will link it below. I will continue to break down sections of my book, so stay tuned for that. And again, thank you so much for being here, and I hope this helped, and I'm wishing you all the love, health, and strength on your cancer journey.